Welcome to the Ag Innovation News Podcast, presented by the Agricultural Utilization Research Institute of Minnesota. Welcome to the Ag Innovation News Podcast here. I'm Jamie Dickerman, your host. Thanks for making us a part of your day, whatever you're doing here. We're glad you're watching or listening to this. We're going to be talking about a really important thing that has come about, and we talk about the different uses of agriculture. We talk about the different innovations going on, and one of those innovations is actually become life-saving. We're talking about soy-based firefighting foam. We know it as SoyFoam. You may have heard of it. It's a product made from soybeans. It's now being tested and used by fire departments. It's kind of an alternative to the other firefighting foams that are used. And we have Dave Garlie from Cross Plains Solutions with us, also Mike Youngerberg from Minnesota Soybean here to talk about it. Guys, thanks for taking time to discuss this pretty important stuff and pretty cool stuff coming out of the world of soybeans. So we're glad to have you here.
Well, thanks for having us, Jamie.
Yeah, and this is really great. So I want to get right into this because this is something that we've working in ag media like I do. You know, we've had a lot of conversations and heard a lot about different things going on with uses of soybeans. So one of those, like I said, SoyFoam. This is a product now that's being used. So Dave, let's start with you and talk about this. People may not have heard of this yet, but talk about SoyFoam, what it is and how it came about.
Sure. I'd be glad to. SoyFoam. So that's just a trade name for soybeans that have been repurposed and functionalized to deliver an effective firefighting foam for our firefighters. There's a national crisis out there called PFAS, polyfluoroalkyl substances. You can't turn on the TV without seeing an infomercial about Camp Lejeune and the effect that detrimental chemical has, not only the health of our firefighters, first responders, and soldiers, but also the communities that we live in. Ground contamination, aquifer contamination, and that works its way back to the food chain. So SoyFoam is an attempt to provide another effective firefighting foam for firefighters that eliminates the use of that nasty chemical called PFAS by utilizing what? Soybeans. So the main component in soybeans is there's two big components, right? There's soy protein, which is highly desired for a lot of food applications. A lot of residuals in the soybean also get fed back to our livestock for feed. Another main component is the oil, vegetable oil. And so when a bean goes from the farmer's field to the market, it goes to a crush facility where it's processed. And then the oil is removed, and then the residual is what they call soybean meal. And so we're utilizing the meal piece. And what we're looking for in the meal piece is really the protein. How do we, as scientists, get access to that protein, which has been proven to be a very effective firefighting foam? So if you look at history, Dr. Percy Julian Lamont, back in the 40s, was a scientist, and he was one of the first to discover soybean isolate. And by doing so, they found out, hey, when you take this stuff and you mix it with a bucket of water and agitate it, it foams. And so, believe it or not, soybeans was really used as the fire suppressant during World War II. And so his discovery was given a great deal of accreditation to saving thousands of sailors' lives at sea during sea battles. So fast forward to the 50s and the 60s, it has some challenges. It was thick. It was made from soybeans. And if it wasn't used in time, it would go rancid. So it had some handling issues. So along comes what? PFAS, the chemical that fixed it all, right? And that's kind of how history and business works. You find a problem with the current technology and you find a replacement. So PFAS was really that discovery, and because it addressed all the challenges of soybeans. And it didn't take long for the Department of Defense to adopt that and the municipal fire departments to adopt that technology because it was deemed as safe. But here we are today with a national crisis, right? So what do we pivot back to? We took the approach to revisit what had been used in the past. And so our team from Cross Plains, with the help of Minnesota Soy and the farmers in general to help us with the funds to do this research, are repurposing soybeans. So we're just basically taking Dr. Percy's discovery and then making improvements to it and then putting it in play and then getting it tested by firefighters. I do all my research currently at Chippewa Valley Technical College in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which happens to have a fire safety center, including a 2,500 square foot interior burn room. So we can do research year round. What that allows us to do as the scientist, because full transparency, I'm not a firefighter yet. I'm looking to go to fire school one to get my street credit. But what we're looking to do is to partner with the market. And who's the market leaders? Well, the firefighters. So we make prototypes from soybeans. We give it to the pros, the firefighters. They run it through a battery of tests. The feedback they've provided us allows us to make changes, derivatize the formulation to produce a product that meets their objectives or satisfaction. And we continue that to this day. Because believe it or not, there's 29,000 plus municipal fire departments across the country. And they're using a product that we're promoting today called SoyFoam that we're going to talk about. And it works great. You know, it does Class A fires. We'll get into again. It does Class B fires. We'll get into that. What does all that mean? But there's also, we have a federal government. And so you have the Department of Defense, which we talked briefly about. You have the U.S. Forest Service. We have oil and gas. And believe it or not, they all have different certifications. And so we have find ourselves to go back to make changes to meet those certification requirements. And the one constant in all these different certifications, which are very expensive and time consuming, is the soybeans put out all the fires. No problem. Where do we come up short? It's the other physical, rheological aspects that are required in certifications, like viscosity. So viscosity is to measure the thickness of your fluid. So you could have a glass of water has low viscosity, a milkshake has high viscosity. Because we're using soybeans, repurposing soybeans, Mother Nature's polymer, we're going to be a little bit thicker. So we've got to get creative to either A, figure out ways and means to lower the viscosity of the protein in the soy, or B, go to legislation and change standards for these different certifications. And we do both fronts. So that's sort of in a nutshell is really what SoyFoam is, how it came about, and the challenges that we are today.
Well, it's again very interesting, and what was old becomes new again, kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
and bringing it back in. And Mike, I want to touch on this with you because looking at it from the perspective of growing soybeans and what this means when you start to get these different things, because we're so many different uses for soybeans that we've been hearing about, and the list continues to grow while we're talking. The list is growing. I mean, it's unbelievable the different directions we're all going with this. But this has got to be one of the best ones, one of the best uses that I've heard. And you're talking about such a. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right?
Absolutely. As Dave was talking about, it's, those opportunities, I think, for our program, our checkoff program to help companies that are bringing something to the market that can help replace petroleum products or other products that just aren't meeting the needs of what's happening today. So it's been really exciting. I think we're just on the cusp of really getting the word out to firefighters and various people, but it's it's always a what can we do with the products that we have, and as you said, the list keeps growing every day, and I just think it's going to keep moving that direction.
Well, it certainly is, and again, exciting stuff, especially when we're dealing with what we're dealing with. When we're dealing with a world market that's a little bit tough right now, with everything going on with we hear so much about soybeans and not going to China, and are they going to China? Waiting to get all that done. So when we're talking about different uses that we can do right here at home, it's pretty exciting stuff. And I know, Dave, you were talking about the different aspects of this and all the different testing and all the different things that go into this. And you're kind of touching briefly over that, but there's a lot of work being put into this. in order to get it to where it needs to be. But we are seeing it being used. We are seeing it being successful.
Correct. Yeah, we're about 150 departments across the country. Like Minnesota Soy has been very supportive, and we're a small company. And so without the support of the farmers like Minnesota Soy, United Soybean Board, and the other 32 state qualified soybean boards, bringing something to market of this magnitude is monumental. So without their support, and their leadership, and their guidance, we do follow the state guidance for each QSSB. And that's very, very attractive because Mike and his team have a vision how to introduce this to the state of Minnesota. And we follow that. And Wisconsin will do something a little bit different. Every state does a little bit different. But the point being, without the farmer support, those checkoff dollars in the leadership of these states like Mike and his team, it is almost a monumental task because we're a small company. So that cooperation is priceless.
So when you talk about the different things that need to be changed to make this optimal, you talked about the viscosity end and how,
Mhm.
do you need to do you need to change the regulations with the government, and which, we see how well things work with the government, and how long of a process that can be.
Mhm.
So obviously trying to make some changes the other way too. Um, Talk about that and how you're trying to fit it into all the different types and categories of firefighting, because that's an amazing undertaking.
It is. And the beauty about soy is it's flexible, right? So there's more than just meal. There's more ways to derivatize meal. It also has oil, has other, you know, diluents associated with it. So we're utilizing all the aspects of beans through chemistry, through formulation work to address the shortcomings. In parallel, we're having podcasts like this, and we go to the Hill. We received a pretty prestigious award in September. We got the National Green Chemistry Challenge Award for discovery and um, renewable concepts of this new discovery called firefighting foam with beans. So that gave us a platform, an opportunity to go to the Hill and talk to our legislators from across the country, mostly the soybean producing states. So it's awareness, right? So we're trying to provide awareness. For example, here's something frustrating that everybody should be talking about. So U.S. Forest Service has a very specific requirement for a Class A fire suppressant. So if you're in federal land, BLM land, and you have to use their approved firefighting foam to extinguish the fire. You go across the road, and then volunteer firefighter from community A, B, and C are using the SoyFoam. The fire jumps the road. They use the SoyFoam with the same effectiveness or better effectiveness for extinguishment. But we're not approved for use on the BLM land, federal land. So it's little pieces like that. I think if we bring awareness to the community and say, well, does this even make sense? We're using the same equipment, the devices on the fire truck, whether you're on BLM land or if you're in a volunteer fire department up in Castleton, North Dakota. So there's a lot of those common sense awareness that we provide. But knowing, to your point, Jamie, change in federal regulation is very difficult. We still have to drive forward to meet the current standards that are written in spec today. And we're making strides to do that. But it's also expensive, right? So just to give you a flavor, to be U.S. Forest Service compliance, you're looking at a $157,000 ticket. And it's an 18 to 24 month process. So the barrier to entry for the Department of Defense, U.S. Forest Service, very costly. Again, without the support of our farmers and the leadership, it would be very difficult for a small company to achieve such a goal.
Well, and Mike, I mean, when you talk about getting the help from the soybean farmers, we're talking about, that checkoff is so vital for things like this, and to really help, push this forward to get this out in front of as many people as we can.
Absolutely. And Jamie was talking about United Soybean Board, who were really instrumental in helping Cross Plains develop the product. I think we're now to the point of checkoff dollars coming in to provide educational help. There's always that, how do you get the word out conversation we've been approaching this in a couple of different ways, and there's the partnership on continuing to to improve support for that piece, and the education and piece uh, is as vital in going forward as it is to initially get the product to the marketplace. So involvement all the way from um, day one to whatever day it takes to get the product into the hands of each and every fire department, whether it's here in Minnesota or other states or these other opportunities that Dave's talking about, like the Forest Service or the FAA, multiple opportunities, but challenges as well. But I think we can overcome them. It's just like everything else, it takes a little bit of time.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It just takes a little bit of time. And, Dave, talking about the soy foam and talking about the effectiveness of it and maybe talk a little bit more about that too and how effective this product is in knocking down the fire quicker, safer, all the
Mhm.
benefits of this.
Sure. Um, Again, this isn't my discovery. This is discovery from the firefighters and Dr. Percy. So soy contains protein, which is a natural binder. And so if you think about a fire, you have to have fuel, you have to have oxygen, and you have to have uh, fuel, oxygen. What was the
Ignition, you got to
ignition?
ignite it.
Yeah, ignition. So it's your fire triangle, right? And so for a fire suppressant to be effective, you have to move one of the three components that create fire. So for when we're using soybeans, so Class A, they call it a Class A wetting agent. So Class A is like your fuels like wood, cotton, plastics are considered Class A fires, Class A fuels. And so in order to extinguish that, you have to cool, you want to cool the fuel. And so in the particular case of wood, you take advantage of the protein with other builders and surfactants and water. And then if you just put water on it, it just runs off. But if you put a surfactant with protein, it lowers the surface tension. Now I'm getting into the chemistry. Lowers the surface tension of that water, and it can penetrate the fuel. And that penetration of fuel is really the key because the protein allows the water to penetrate into the fuel and then stick there. And then the longer it sticks there, the cooler the fuel gets. Hence, extinguishment. So the soy is really critical in allowing us to get that water into the fuel and stay there. That's your extinguishment, mechanism for Class A's. The other thing that soy does very, very well is what they call Class B's. Class B fires are your hydrocarbon fuel fires, diesel, gasoline, liquid flammable fuels. And the beauty of protein, again, is in those particular examples, you want to do what they refer to as a foam blanket. And so because we're using protein and it foams so well, it also has the ability to bind the foam structure together to give us integrity, to stick around long enough to prevent or to extinguish, lower the temperature of the fuel, separate the oxygen from the fuel, again, barrier. That's what protein allows us to do. If you take that protein out and you put all the other components in there, I cannot extinguish a Class B fuel. If you put the protein back in, we can extinguish Class B liquid hydrocarbon fuels like gas and diesel. But what's also interesting, so I talked about extinguishment of the soy. Another unique aspect is prevention. So here comes a forest fire, Texas, California. You have a structure. So you can use the soy foam as a preventative measure and spray it on your dwelling and give yourself, your dwelling, your physical property a chance to prevent ignitions from embers dropping on it. And this is readily used and been demonstrated. Like in the Dakotas, there was a ditch fire started by the railroad. And the North Dakota winds get going pretty good, pretty dry, and she's going down the ditch pretty fast. So the fire department drove ahead with a mile, and they laid down a blanket of foam, soy foam, on the vegetation, on the railroad tracks, and got away and let it burn right into the barrier, and boom, extinguishment was achieved. And so a lot of times, if you're doing controlled burns, I use my simple farm sprayer, 25 gallons, 6 feet wide, and I charge it with 2.5% soy foam, and I'll go around a 5-acre field of dead switchgrass every spring for my controlled burn, and then I light it, and then that fire's contained, and it never jumps that barrier, so it's not going to burn outside the trail and go into the woods. So it's used for a lot of controlled burn applications. I've heard of people using it for telephone poles. And so apparently the telephone company gets pretty upset with you, or the power company gets upset with you when you burn down telephone poles and section lines. So there's a lot of people that are spraying them down before they do their prescribed burn. So it has a really good extinguishing performance, and it also sticks around long enough to give preventative performance. And it's all attributed to because of the soy, the protein in the soy.
Fascinating stuff, really is. I just I can't get over it. And I always love this stuff because I always love to find out. I remember how blown away I was when I found out that the shoes I were wearing were made from soybeans. So I just, it just blows me away to find this stuff out. And Mike, talking about this and what this is going to mean when when we get this into the hands of all these different fire departments around the country more so, and this really takes off, what this is going to mean to soybean growers.
Well, I think it's certainly that added value market that we've been looking for. We're very deep into the renewable fuel space, and we're on the very edge now of, I think, a real expansion in that renewable fuel space, particularly in the biodiesel, renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuel market. We've got soybean processing being added uh, all the time. We're probably maybe going to see more of that yet. But as the other side of it, we need to really uh, bring that other value piece of the soybean along with us. So uh, it it just makes sense that we're taking all the components, whether it's the oil piece into the renewable space or other products such as the asphalt preservative types of things, and you can then jump over to the protein side. And yeah, we need to feed our livestock, and we need to provide those food products that consumers want. But with you know, the amount of soybean protein that's going to be available, um, and using it off of uh, bringing it off the market, you know, makes us less dependent sometimes on export markets, although export markets are very important. Um, the opportunity to continue to expand those uses just continues to hold that profitability for the farmer.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Dave, I'm curious to know, when you talk to firefighters that have used the soy foam, that have had experience with it, what kinds of feedback do you get from the departments?
They love it. So often when we get asked to do, we do a lot of demos. Mike and his team and the other support cast through the promotion, speaking engagements, showing up at shows, but also actually going to the field and running demonstrations. Like Renville County, I was supporting one from Minnesota Soy. It was awesome. It was Friday Night Lights. It was a big demolition. All 10 departments show up to provide support in the event they need assistance, right? And at the very end, they had brought out a car and lit it. And so the grandstands is full 9:30 at night, Friday night. Do the math, right? Crowd's going crazy. And the fire departments demonstrated to the community why they use foam. And it's events like that that really seed, belief. It's one thing to read a piece of literature and it does A, B, and C. It's another thing to physically go to their turf, provide samples, answer their questions, and let them administer their own study and make their own decisions. That is something that we do constantly, and it's imperative. It's costly, but without the support of Mike and his team, it makes it very difficult, right? So we're going to continue those efforts. The feedback we get is great. A lot of times we get a head-to-head. So, okay, we're using foam A, and we're going to try your foam. And so the department will actually administer their own study. And every time we're in those studies, we come out ahead. Every time. One of the things I haven't touched base on is, in addition to performance, what are the other intangibles? It's the environmental impact assessment. And here's where we separate ourselves. Because of we're using soybeans, and we're the only ones using soybeans today, we encourage more to do so tomorrow. We have a really good environmental footprint. When I say good, so there's a governing body from Clean Production Action called Green Screen Certification. And it's an independent body. And one of the categories in there is firefighting foams. And so they're responsible for rating the environmental health and safety aspects of the chemistry used to make these firefighting foams. We're the only green screen certified gold foam in the world. And I'm not going to get into the details of it. It's just a reflection of how safe, from an environmental standpoint, health standpoint, and safety standpoint, that foam is. It's something we're incredibly proud of. And the other way we're able to achieve that is because of we're using soy. The same stuff we make out of Dunkin' Donuts and other bakery goods, we're repurposing into a firefighting foam. So when our first responders, the volunteer fire department world is mostly rural. 85% of the country, 90% of the country has rural fire departments. Rural setting typically means what? Farmers are also our volunteer fire departments. And so it has a real connectivity piece. So they can see their product that they grow and harvest being repurposed for their second job or their third job, and that is keeping our community safe. But they want to know what's going on. What are we doing when we put out a dwelling and we eliminate the threat and keep our community safe? What chemistry are we putting on? Well, now they know. And we're very forthcoming in providing the test details to the community. The soybean board has put together a placard, and that placard is given to departments. They hand out to the community when they use the foam, because the community is, what do they see on TV? Foam's bad, foam's bad. So we've got to basically arm our first responders, our firefighters, with proper information that has been provided by the farmers to say, hey, if you're going to use soy foam made from soybeans, it has been certified as fit for use and checked all these boxes. And that's something we continue to this day. And I think that's incredibly important to regain community confidence, trust, which has been lost because the PFAS incident, that we've got to get back to an effective tool for our first responders, firefighters, to keep us all safe. But at the end of the day, it's fit for use. For example, like there's a interstate accident and there's a bad scene, there's fuel spill, but no ignition. So you can use the soy foam. They use it, they make a foam blanket, cover up the fuel, and that creates a safer environment for the first responders to run in, administer assistance to the scene. So what do you do with the foam when you're done? Well, they push it in a ditch. We'll let Mother Nature take care of the rest. And in doing so, the EPA has a measure called biodegradability. So we're considered ready biodegradable. So in order to achieve that title, 60% of your chemistry has to biodegrade in 180 days, 6 months. Okay. Because we're using soybeans, 69% of that foam goes away in 18 days. And that's exactly what we want. Right. And at the end, after 180 days, 93%'s gone. So at the end of the year, it's gone. That's exactly what we want. So we want to have something that's very effective, that keeps our community safe, but after its time of use, let Mother Nature take care of the rest, just like we do today with beans that are spilt and It just gets reconsumed. And that's the beauty about using agricultural supply chains like soybeans that we can build into our communities again to provide a safety net and not introduce other chemistries that will have a prolonged effect. So the question becomes, all right, we use PFAS, we found out how bad they are. What are we getting replaced with? Who's coming forward and talking about the chemistry of the replacement chemistry? Are we going to be dealing with this 20 years from now? Or should we take the lessons from Dr. Percy Levon Julian and his discovery of soybeans during World War II? It's fit for use. We know the history of beans, right? We know the outcome. We know the lasting effects of our environment. So we're really focused on maintaining that history of yesterday, repurposing it, and make improvements to it. But we know at the end of the day when it's used, it's not going to have an ill effect on our communities.
It's a total win-win situation. Guys, if people listening to this, watching this, they're thinking, I want to learn more about this and do their own, information, dig a little bit further into it. Where can they go get more information on this, Dave?
Well, certainly contact Mike, Minnesota Soy. They have lots of contacts. We have a website, crossplainsolutions.com. If you go to any Google search and just type SoyFoam, it'll pop up. But encourage you to talk to your local farmer, get connected to Minnesota Soy Research and Promotional Council, where you'll see us coming through your community, provide some support, come ask questions, show some concerns. We're here to help. We're here to answer. And nothing more than the support and the gratitude that we want to give a shout out today for Mike and his team, and of course our farmers and the support cast and network, and Jamie, you hosting this event to give us an opportunity to give a message out there. It's all very welcomed.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Mike, I'll give you the last word on this because you're in the field, you're growing them, you know the importance of all this. So I'll give you the last word on this and what you want people to know, what to take away from this conversation.
Well, I think, the real takeaway is, agriculture can provide solutions for a lot of problems, products from A to Z, and SoyFoam being one of them. I think, we've now completed the distribution of about 250 pails of the SoyFoam product out to our rural counties that are part of our organization. Our next steps are taking it to larger cities, those that are right on the edge of, not having anything to use because, we basically banned the product here in Minnesota. So we've got plans going forward, working with Cross Plains. Thanks to AURI for hosting, as Dave said. I think this really helps with getting the information established out there that can really help continue to drive the market side.
Absolutely. Guys, Dave Garlie, Cross Plains Solutions, Mike Youngerberg with Minnesota Soybean. Guys, thanks for being here today. A great topic, super informative and super interesting. So thanks for doing this.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
thanks for the hosting.
You bet. And that'll do it for this edition of the Ag Innovation News Podcast from AURI. I'm Jamie Dickerman. Thanks for watching and listening. This has been the Ag Innovation News Podcast, presented by the Agricultural Utilization Research Institute of Minnesota.